Happy holidays out there to everybody. Brian, I know you and your family have to get on a plane out to Minnesota to celebrate Christmas. But before you do that, let's spend a few minutes talking about the high school guys that signed with Colorado in the 2024 class during the early signing period. We were planning to do this on Wednesday, but of course, we were all waiting on Jordan Seaton. I didn't think we could really do this until we had some finality there with him.
Yeah, you kind of got to get the big fish in before you can talk about the whole group of that you caught, right? So yeah, we didn't know maybe you did, but we didn't know like what Jordan Seaton was going to do. I'm not sure anybody did on Wednesday, but certainly had to wait for that. But and especially because there's only five others, so if you're only going to talk about a handful of high school kids, let's talk about them all at once.
Well, let's start with Jordan Seaton because that
Yeah.
is the headliner, like you mentioned. This is unlike the type of offensive lineman that we've seen to come to Colorado now. There's been guys like Nate Solder and David Bakhtiari that have been three-star guys that end up being really successful, well-paid NFL guys. But in terms of the cachet coming in, you got to go back to Ryan Miller when he was a five-star recruit back in the '07 class. And even that, Jordan's a little bit higher rated overall. He's the number three in terms of his composite rating right now, all time. If you go back to 2000, now you can't really go back before that because that's when the internet age with recruiting coverage started. But
Yeah.
this is a really big deal. There's a reason that folks were as nervous as they were. There was a reason that the coverage was as focused on him in recent days as it was.
Yeah, and part of it is because CU fans saw what the offensive line looked like this last year, and so if you can get the number one offensive lineman in the country, that's a position where typically, I remember like Mike McIntyre, telling me or telling probably us that generally it's that third year on campus that an offensive lineman is ready to go because you need those couple years to develop. But some guys are different, and there's not very many guys like Jordan Seaton that can probably step in right away. I think of a guy like Penei Sewell a couple years ago at Oregon that as a true freshman came in and was just dominant as an offensive tackle. And I don't know where Jordan Seaton compares to him, but like it can happen. And if anybody's going to do that, it's Jordan Seaton, and that's why you want that guy, in on your team, and that's why CU fans were nervous when there's rumors of Maryland and all the other schools like Tennessee and things like that. But that's why CU fans were nervous and probably rejoiced and maybe gloated a little bit yesterday afternoon when it came down that he was actually coming to CU.
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard for us to set expectations for Jordan Seaton in year one. And you look at a guy like Caden Proctor that went to Alabama, and this was somebody that CU had a brief flirtation with. Tim Brewster did an in-home visit with him last winter. He ends up going to Alabama, and he was pretty solid, but he gave up pressures, he gave up sacks, and there's nothing about Jordan Seaton in his game that suggests that he's anything other than the real deal. And just seeing him in person on his official visit, it's like, wow, this is just different looking than what Colorado usually brings in terms of a true freshman offensive lineman. But what can we expect from him? How much can those 15 spring practices help? I really don't know. I don't know. Do you need to bring in competition to compete with him at left tackle, or is do you pencil Jordan Seaton in to protect Shedeur Sanders' blindside? There's a lot riding on this 2024 season for not just Colorado but Shedeur Sanders and trying to maximize what Travis Hunter is going to do in the college level. Uh, it does make me question, like, how much can Colorado put on this young man in year one?
Yeah, and I think some of it depends on who comes back because I've seen a lot of fans are out there. Here's my projected offensive line, and it doesn't include a guy like Savion Washington who played pretty well early last year, and then he got hurt. And when he came back, he wasn't healthy and didn't play as well. But don't discount a Savion Washington. And I look at last year, there were a ton of fans that were penciling in at cornerback. It's Travis Hunter and Cormani McLean. Well, Deion Sanders made Cormani McLean earn it, and he didn't really earn it for a long time, and played a little bit. Played more the second half of the season. Now McLean's different. Maybe Deion has different standards for a cornerback 5-star. Obviously, Cormani he came in late summer as opposed to
Yeah.
Jordan Seaton's going to be here in the spring. That's a big difference, especially offensive line. And so I don't think we can pencil in Jordan Seaton at left tackle at this point, but I think that you definitely have to make him compete for it and earn it because you've got other tackles that you've signed and you've got Savion Washington. So make him earn it. But I think if he is a starter on the offensive line, he's earned it because we've seen with this team, with this coaching staff, that they will play the best players. And if you're not, they don't care if you're a 5-star. If you haven't earned it, you're not going to play.
Yeah, there's only 6 high school signees in the early signing period for Colorado, and that's maybe a strategy that it's not maybe it's getting judged out there.
Yeah.
Some people think that you got to do whatever you can to maximize the potential for 2024, but then other people say, well, that's no way to build a college roster. I spent a lot of time thinking about this the last couple of days, Brian. Um, I think that given where CU is at right now, and you reflect on, you mentioned Cormani McLean, he struggled a little bit at times this past season. Uh, Omarion Miller had a huge second half against USC, but he was still a true freshman. He still had
Yeah.
the consistency part of it that you just don't seem to get until you have some experience at this level. So you really probably can't bank on a whole lot. Now we'll get into some of these other guys that might be able to be playmakers early on in their time at Colorado, but you can't necessarily expect them to be all conference guys from day one. And so I do understand the strategy to get the more proven guys when you're looking at 2024 as this golden opportunity to really maximize things. But on the same level, getting to Jordan Seaton, I think helps with 2025 recruiting and having Coach Prime tell Stephen A. Smith that I love Boulder and reiterating the fact that, he's committed to Colorado. And so there are parts that I think could jumpstart their 2025 recruiting, but I get the debate. I get why it's taking place. I just have now kind of, after really digesting it, kind of lean on the side of Coach Prime, and maybe this is the best strategy given, where we are in college football these days.
Yeah, and I've seen some narratives that there's some place that called it's lazy recruiting to go this way. I'm like, I think that's the wrong way to put it because I don't think it's easier to recruit a transfer than it is a high school kid. You still have to go out and find the right fits. I don't think it's lazy recruiting. I've also seen people say this is no way to build a program. Well, how do we know? Because the transfer portal era is so new that we don't know if this is a way to do it. I mean, there's plenty of teams in the professional levels that's how they build their rosters is a lot through free agency, right? And that's kind of what this is. Deion Sanders has said it. The transfer portal is free agency. The high schools is the draft. Well, there's a lot of pro teams that lean more on free agency than the draft and kind of fill some holes with the draft. But that's what he wants to do. I think it's too early to say that this is not a strategy that can work because if you load up with transfers that have 3 years left, you can still develop them and you've got them for 3-4 years. So I think that what they're doing is fine. And the same article said, well, it doesn't work this way. It said, well, they were better than I thought they were going to be this last year. So in one article saying, well, it worked this first year, but that's not how you do it. Well, we'll see, because I think they're going to be better this next year. And I like you, I kind of lean towards Deion Sanders here, and let's just see this play out because they're clearly getting better. I think the roster is clearly getting better than it was last year.
Yeah, they've gone out and addressed needs. Now, as we record this, linebacker is still a big need for this program, but they've done a really good job of taking care of some of their weak links back in 2023. Mm-hmm. And it sure does seem like we talked about all these incoming transfers, that the caliber of linemen coming into this program are a step up from what they were last winter when you're,
yeah.
I wouldn't say scrambling as a staff, but Coach Prime was coaching in the Celebration Bowl. Part of his staff was kind of split. You don't have the ability to really have the same momentum with recruiting like you do now in year two, and we've seen that manifest itself with positive results. I'm not 100% sure that they need to be done with offensive linemen. They might need another lineman or two, especially with Matthew Bedford going to Oregon. But the pieces that they have brought in are clearly a step above what they brought in last winter.
Yeah, and Isaiah Walker not coming here as well. The JUCO kid. They went out and got Philip Houston from FIU. That was kind of a later addition, but I would probably say you need another offensive lineman, at least one. I think they're at 14 right now. Is that right? Is it 14 or 15? And I think we typically see 16, 17, and so I'd probably like to see another couple linemen, but I think they got plenty of pieces there. Obviously, they brought in 6 transfers or 5 transfers that were starters last year. You have Jordan Seaton. You still have a couple of guys, and I know CU fans will, you can say what you want about these guys, but you have 2 starters back from last year, Jack Bailey and Savion Washington, and then you got Tyler Brown, who sat all last year, was projected as a starter. So there's plenty of competition for a 2 deep there that's going to be really good.
Draylon Miller coming in from Silsbee, Texas, Cameron McKell from Georgia. These are a couple top level type athletes. Cam McKell had Georgia make a late run at him, and initially Georgia was looking at him more as a defensive back prospect. With McKell wanting to play on offense in college, they came back in late and said, "We'll put the ball in your hands." And so that's a huge recruiting win for them. Draylon Miller was committed to Texas A&M for a while. Different type of players. McKell is going to be one of the fastest guys every time he steps on the field. Draylon Miller is a guy that I think when he gets in a college weight room is going to become a beast because he's somebody that's already a pretty physical player. Any thoughts on those 2 guys and what they bring to the offense? I could see both of those guys having some type of role next year.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see, how receiver plays out because I mean there were some freshmen we were excited about this year. Omari Miller had the one big half, like you mentioned, but not a whole lot after that. So it's hard to know what to expect. But Draylon Miller, he sort of reminds me of Laviska Shenault as far as like his physicality at that position and the way I mean, I think he could be a yak monster, right? Like Chenault was a guy that he's going to be tough to bring down. He's going to get a lot of yards after the contact. So I really like that. And then Cam McKell obviously shifty and fast, and he's a guy that you could see maybe being in a return role. A slot type of role. So I think both those guys are really exciting, maybe more so for the future because you still have I mean, they're loaded with a receiver. You have Travis Hunter and Jimmy Horn and Will Shepherd and guys like that. Those are the guys I expect to get the ball. But you have to be excited about those 2 guys for the future.
And then you go to the defensive line. Guys like Brandon Davis-Swain and Eric Brantley would have been headliners most years in the past with Colorado recruiting. And these were super, super productive players at the high school level. Brandon Davis-Swain's listed at 6'3", and Eric Brantley 6'2", so they're not crazy long like some of those 5-star defensive linemen. But really, I think that's the only thing keeping them from being, ranked among the top 15 guys among defensive linemen. Because when you watch what they did at the high school level, I mean, these guys were bringing it week in, week out.
Yeah, high numbers of sacks, right? I think Davis-Swain was like second all time in Michigan high school history with 50 sacks, and Brantley was, I think it was 30 some sacks and over 100 tackles for loss in 3 years on varsity. So both these guys, when I watch them, really good at kind of avoiding offensive linemen getting their hands on them. They were really good at like they're getting past offensive linemen, not I wouldn't say easily, somewhat easily, but they don't let those guys get their hands on them, and they can get past these guys, and they're fast and they get to the ball. So that's impressive, and obviously it's gonna be a different level at college, but you love seeing that because even some of the top level or some of the top pass rushers we've seen in the past, I don't think have been as good as these 2 guys at that. Of avoiding that contact with the lineman and getting into the backfield.
And I don't know, because of the transfers they're bringing on the D line, how big a role you can expect out of either of these guys. But I will always take the guy that is a little bit more stout, a little bit more athletic, kind of moves like a wrestler out there over. Not to pick on him, but Jason Harris was a highly regarded guy that came into Colorado, but he came in with a basketball frame, and you kind of looked at him the same way you did when Jimmy Gilbert got to campus in Boulder and said, it's going to be a few years because you're going to have to adjust to the physicality of it. And these are the type of guys that I like. In Chidozie from the transfer ranks as well, having that wrestling background. I like the makeup of the type of defensive lineman that the staff recruits.
Yeah, I mean they've got some monsters in here. I mean the guys that have shown it in their previous stops, and I know high school again is different than college, but guys that were high motor and just physical players, and you love seeing that because that's what they need. And that the defensive line, the front 7 this year struggled quite a bit, and they were good at rushing the passer. I'll give them that. They were much better than the previous year, but most of their top pass rushers are now gone. And so you've got to have guys like Davis-Swain or Brantley step up. And I don't know if both of them will, but I could see where maybe one of those guys emerges and gets into the rotation this year.
Definitely not to be forgotten is Georgia running back Michael Welch. He was my most underrated pick. There weren't a whole lot of options, as you pointed out when you DM me the other day. I mean, these are all highly regarded guys. Now, Michael Welch is not a high 3 star. He's kind of a mid 3 star, which I don't know surprises me because this is a guy that really carried the load his junior year. Got banged up his senior year, didn't wasn't able to finish it out, but he was having a highly productive season. And this is when Coach Prime talks about the type of backs that he likes. What you see from the film with Michael Welch kind of fits in line
Yeah.
with that, being a little bit more of a stout type of back that can wear down defenses as the game goes along.
Yeah, I love this guy, and I'm with you. He's of the six. He's my most underrated guy as well. And I really love the way he runs the football. He sort of reminds me a little bit of the way Anthony Hankerson was in high school, and a very highly productive running back in high school that just seemed to be overlooked a little bit in recruiting. Wound up, I think it was between Colorado and FIU before he came here. Michael Welch seems to be that same type of thing. I love the way he runs though, and he's a guy that plays linebacker as well. He's not afraid of contact, and I think he runs with power, and he's got some speed as well. So, I can't remember what his yards per carry is, but I think it was close to 7. So I like the way he runs. I think he's gonna be a really good back here.
Don't expect a whole bunch more additions, for the
Yeah.
regular signing period. We'll see. Maybe they add a guy or two, but it does sound like a lot of the focus continues to be on filling the gaps with some of the transfers. And again, I'll go back. I think I've settled on that seems like the right strategy, although it just when it's different, when it's not something that's traditionally done in college football, signing this few guys, it does take some processing, right? To kind of uh, understand, how this is going to work from a chemistry standpoint. But you also look at it with the transfer portal now, and now they're granting waivers again. I mean, is there going to be chemistry in most programs going forward? It seems like maybe the new norm is that you're going to have these transitional programs where guys come in and they're only there for a couple of years, and you just try to maximize what you can out of those guys while they're on your campus.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to see so much of the attention on Coach Prime in Colorado when there's all these other schools that are losing big time numbers and big time players. And Colorado has not lost big time numbers and players this year. I mean, last year obviously they did, but they're coming off 1-11. But when you see teams like Oklahoma are losing their star quarterback to the transfer portal, there's some concerns there, for other teams. And so there's a lot of focus on Colorado that they're not going to have the chemistry. But to your point, who's going to have it? I mean, there's a lot of teams that are loaded up with first year guys, and there's a point to that. I mean, maybe that's why a USC underachieved. It was because maybe they didn't have the chemistry because it's a bunch of guys that came in for their first year. So maybe we'll see some of that, but like I said earlier, I think the jury is still out on whether this is the right way or a good way to put together a roster. I think I'm just fascinated to watch it play out and just see, can this be done? Because the first year was better. I think the second year will be better. So I'm just curious to see it play out.
And I'm going to be rooting for some of those guys from Colorado's roster in 2023 that ended up at Oregon State and San Diego State. But, to be frank, I don't think they've lost anything that is really that concerning.
Right.
If anything, I wouldn't say it's all been good attrition, but I don't think you worry as a Colorado fan with anything that's hit the portal so far.
Yeah. And I mean, everything they've lost, I think they've replaced with better, I think Van Wells was a big loss to me, but we'll see. I don't think they're any worse at center right now. But to your point, yeah, I'll root for those guys. It was kind of cool seeing Owen McCown, lead
Yeah.
UTSA to a bowl win the other day, and we got to know him a little bit, and he was about the most exciting thing for Colorado football for about 3 weeks in
Yeah.
2022, and so to see him get a bowl win, and his first career first start there, and to lead a bowl win, that was pretty cool. So yeah, still root for those guys, but yeah, I think this roster is better. I think they're going to be a better roster next year and a better overall team.
All right. I got to hop on a radio interview. You got to hop on a plane, Brian. Happy holidays to you and your family.
Happy holidays to you as well, and hopefully you and the kids have some time, spend some time together, and you get some good presents for them.
I'm just happy Jordan Seaton signed that letter of intent, because otherwise that would have made for a more stressful Christmas around here. So, and happy holidays, everybody out there. And thanks for tuning in.